Have you ever woken up in the morning, light seeping through the window, but instead of feeling like a new day is waiting for you, you feel a heavy fog in your chest? It's not pain. It's not quite sadness either. It's like an empty space, without form, without name, quietly spreading through every cell of your body. You still pick up your phone, scroll through dozens of notifications, laugh at a silly video, reply to a few messages, sip your coffee, and start your work. Life keeps moving, but deep beneath all that motion, there's something that makes you feel like you're slowly fading away. Not dying, not breaking, just disappearing, bit by bit, quietly, without anyone noticing. That feeling is hard to name. It's not intense enough to make you cry, not clear enough to call for help. It just lingers, like a faint echo, like a thin layer of mist covering your vision. Sometimes you think, maybe I'm okay. I'm still working. I have friends. I still find small joys. But as soon as that joy fades, the emptiness returns, cold and silent. You feel like a shadow in your own life, moving, smiling, talking, but not really there. Carl Jung once said this isn't depression. It's a soul cry. Because there's a big difference between pain and meaninglessness. Pain can make you cry. It can make you scream. It reminds you that you're still alive. But meaninglessness silently drains you from the inside. It doesn't make you bleed. It doesn't knock you down. It just pulls the life out of you, slowly, until one day you realize you're existing without truly living. Maybe you felt that too. In the middle of a party, music blaring, friends laughing, lights flashing, and suddenly, for a brief second, you feel completely alone. Or during a conversation, you're smiling, nodding, responding, but inside you feel hollow, like the words are passing through you without touching your soul. And that's when the question appears, not with a scream, but with a quiet whisper. Why am I here? What am I really living for? What's scary about that question isn't that it makes you panic. It's that it never fully goes away. It lingers in the quiet spaces of life. When you're staring out the bus window, when you turn off the lights at night, when you finally achieve a goal you've chased for years, only to feel nothing change inside you. And so, to silence that echo, we start filling our lives with movement. We set new goals, make new plans. We shop, travel, throw ourselves into work. We stay busy not just to move forward, but to avoid stopping. Because when we stop, the question returns. It doesn't demand an answer right away. It only asks us to listen. And that listening, more than anything, is what we fear. We often think our greatest fear is failure or loss. But there's something deeper. It's the fear that maybe we've never truly lived. That all our success, all the praise, all the people around us have never really touched the deepest part of who we are. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I still feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people? Why can I smile in photos, but when I look back, my eyes aren't really shining? Maybe it's because deep down, you feel like you're losing something no one else can give back to you, except you. Jung believed that modern people don't die from lack, but from overload. Overloaded with information, overloaded with choices, overloaded with noise. We're surrounded by 1,000 voices telling us what matters. Be successful, be special, be happy, look good. But in all those voices, the one that's missing is your soul's voice. It gets drowned out, covered up, and slowly, we forget how to hear it. That's why you feel like you're fading, even when others say you're shining. You might be praised, followed, even loved, but none of it fills the silence inside you. Sometimes it even makes it louder, because the more light there is on the outside, the more you notice the darkness within. I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to remind you that you're not alone. That feeling is deeply human. It's your soul trying to speak, telling you it's time to pause, to listen, to ask the question you've been avoiding. If everything I'm doing is just a performance, then what really matters? Because the truth is, you can fool the world. You can show them a perfect image, a stable life, a strong version of yourself. But you can't fool your soul. It knows when you're pretending. It knows when your smile is just for show. It knows when you say, I'm fine, but you're broken inside. And that soul cry, it's not your enemy. It's an invitation. But to answer it, you'll have to do something most of us fear. You'll have to stop and look into the darkest place within yourself, the place where you've buried things, the fears you won't name, the memories you want to forget, but also the place that holds the meaning you've been searching for your whole life. Maybe you're used to running, used to staying busy to avoid the stillness. But the stillness is still waiting for you. It won't disappear just because you don't look at it. It's there, like a locked door. And guess what? The key isn't somewhere out there. It's hidden in your wounds, in the very shadows you've been avoiding. So maybe the real question isn't, how can I stay busy? How can I achieve more? Maybe it's, if I've never truly lived, then where do I begin? That's when you realize the thing you fear isn't failure or loss. It's the silence within, the place where a truth is waiting, a truth you've been afraid to face. And in that silence, the darkness finally begins to speak. The darkness begins to speak, and to avoid hearing it, we try everything to fill up our lives. We make to-do lists, buy new things, plan trips, spend hours scrolling through our screens, not because any of it truly matters, but because it's easier to keep moving than to sit down and ask, what if I've never really lived? That question cuts straight through the veil of illusion. It's terrifying to think that all the effort, all the years, all the roads we've walked were just a long detour to avoid facing ourselves. But people live like this every day. Because silence is too frightening. Silence opens up space, and in that space, the soul begins to speak. We were raised in a world that keeps pushing us forward. Be better. Go faster. Achieve more. A world that measures worth by how busy we are. So few have the courage to stop. Because when you stop, you risk facing yourself. And sometimes, facing yourself is the scariest thing of all. Jung once said, modern people don't die from lack, but from overload. Too much noise. Too much advice. Too many shoulds and musts. We let the world pour thousands of so-called important things into us until there's no room left to ask, what truly matters to me? So we keep running to drown out the echo within. But the more you run, the more the darkness follows. It doesn't leave. It waits patiently, like a dusty mirror hoping you'll finally wipe it clean. Every time you hit a new milestone, every time the world applauds your success, the darkness whispers, is this really it? Is this really your life? There are nights when you lie in bed, the lights off, no one around, and that question creeps in. You try to push it away. You grab your phone, turn on music, watch something, think about tomorrow. But when silence returns, it's still there. It didn't disappear. It was just waiting for you. And here's the paradox. The more you run, the emptier you feel. Because you're filling your life with pieces that don't belong to you. Shiny, beautiful pieces that never truly fit your soul. You can build a stunning picture, but deep inside, something still feels missing. Maybe you've sat in a luxurious room with a fine drink in your hand, friends around you, and suddenly felt cold inside. Or maybe one morning, you look in the mirror and see a face that seems okay, maybe even successful, but the eyes are empty. That's the cost of running from the darkness. You don't lose your life. You lose your soul while still being alive. And what we often forget is this. The darkness doesn't only hold what we fear. It also holds the truth of who we are. It's where our real desires live, our unnamed dreams, the parts of ourselves we had to abandon just to survive. That's why Jung believed meaning isn't found in the brightest light, but in the very shadow we avoid. You might ask, why should I face the darkness? Why not just keep living with small joys and social successes? The answer is simple, because you can fake happiness, but you can't fake meaning. The world may believe the image you present, but your soul won't. It will keep asking. It will keep sending signals from the loneliness in a crowded room to the unexplained numbness in your heart. You could run for the rest of your life. Many people do. They reach the top, have everything others dream of, and then one day they ask, why do I still feel so empty? Some turn to addictions, others break down. Because they've gone so far down the path of escape, they can't find their way back. But if you're brave enough to stop, you'll see something most people never dare to face. That meaning doesn't come from adding more, but from the courage to look at what you've left behind. Meaning doesn't come from success or busyness. It lives in the quiet moments when you truly face yourself. Imagine walking through a dark forest. Your steps are shaky. Your heart races. You want to turn back. But the deeper you go, the more you begin to see paths that only appear in the dark. Paths that can never be seen in the daylight. That is your inner darkness. It holds roads no one else can walk but you. Roads that lead to the deepest part of your soul. That path is frightening, but it's the only one that leads you home. Because here's the truth. Light doesn't teach you anything new. Only the darkness forces you to see what you've denied. And then there comes a moment when you stop running, stop pretending, stop trying to fill the void with outside things. And in that moment, you hear it more clearly than ever before. The darkness is no longer your enemy. It becomes an invitation to return. And you begin to understand. Meaning isn't easy happiness or temporary peace. It's something far more intimate. It's what allows even your wounds to have a place in your story. Meaning is not easy happiness or fleeting peace. It is the quiet knowing that your pain has a place, that your wounds are not meaningless, that your existence, even if unfinished, is still part of a bigger picture. Meaning is like a thin red thread, stitching the broken pieces together, not to hide the cracks, but to show that even in your brokenness, you still belong to a story. Many people mistake meaning for joy. They think that once they find the right job, the right partner, the right lifestyle, they will feel whole. But happiness and meaning are two different paths. Happiness can come and go like the wind. Meaning runs deeper. It doesn't promise constant joy, but it gives you a reason to endure when the joy fades away. You can sit in a beautiful room, surrounded by every comfort, and still feel like a ghost if meaning is missing. But you can also sit alone in a small, worn-out room, your heart in pieces, and still feel alive if you know that your pain is part of a path. Because, as Jung once wrote, the least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Maybe you've had moments like that, when everyone around you thinks you're doing fine, but inside, you know you're only surviving. And then there's a moment, just a second, when you suddenly feel present. Maybe when you see a child laugh without a care, or when a song touches an old wound, or when you sit quietly under the night sky, feeling small, but somehow belonging. These moments aren't loud, but they remind you that something deep is still connecting you to the world and to yourself. That's what meaning feels like. It's not flashy or dramatic. It's like a deep breath, a quiet nod between two people who understand each other without words. It makes you feel that even in pain, you are not wasting your time. And maybe you're hearing this because there's a part of you that's searching, the part that feels empty in the middle of a busy life. The part that's tired of pretending to be okay, tired of chasing things outside that never quite touch what's inside. I want you to know, you're not alone in that feeling. Many people carry the same question, the same longing. If these words touch something in you, let me know. A short comment, a like, a subscribe. Not just to support the channel, but as a way of saying, I'm here too. I'm hearing the call too. Sometimes, even the smallest connection is enough to remind us that we're not alone on the path to meaning. Because the hard truth is, most people aren't searching for meaning. They're just looking for relief. They want to escape the pressure, escape the fear of failure, escape the guilt of not being enough. So they chase things that look like success, like passion, like peace. But deep down, they know it's only temporary. You can fake ambition. You can fake passion. You can even fake peace, but you cannot fake meaning. Your soul knows. It knows when you're living a life that isn't yours. It knows when your laughter is just part of the performance. And if you ignore it for too long, that silence becomes louder than any pain. There is a special kind of pain. The pain of a soul being abandoned. It doesn't make you cry. It numbs you. You stop truly feeling joy. Stop truly feeling sorrow. You move through life like a spectator in a movie, watching your own story play out with no emotion. That is the slowest kind of death a person can experience. And to escape that death, there is no path but to step into the very place you've avoided your whole life, your inner world. Inside, you won't find hollow affirmations or shortcuts. You'll find the shadow of yourself, the darkness. It holds your shame, your rage, the dreams you left behind, the truths you were afraid to face. The paradox is, those very things are the compass pointing you back to meaning. Meaning is not hidden in shining success, but in the wounds you once wanted to forget. It's not about removing the darkness, but entering it, touching it, and being transformed by it. So the question is no longer, what is the meaning of life? But rather, what part of me did I abandon just to keep surviving? When you answer that question, you begin to reclaim the pieces of yourself, not to become perfect, but to become whole. And in the moment you stop running, in the moment you return, you will realize meaning was never gone. It was always there, waiting for you to be brave enough to see it. But to begin that journey, you must first face a painful truth. Sometimes, the life you worked so hard to build was never truly yours. Sometimes, the life you spent years building was never really yours. That may sound harsh, but think about it. From the time you were little, you were told who you had to become. Be good, be smart, be strong, be useful. And at the same time, there were things you were taught never to be. Don't be too loud. Don't be too soft. Don't fail. Don't show too many emotions. Each one of those messages was like a small blade, cutting away pieces of your true self. Bit by bit, you learned to hide what didn't fit and only show the world what would be accepted. That's when you began to build a mask. At first, the mask was necessary. With it, you were praised, loved, accepted. But over time, the mask became a prison. You wore it for so long that you forgot what your real face looked like. You smiled not because you wanted to, but because you had to. You tried, not because it was your desire, but because it was your role. Jung called this mask the persona. And the danger of the persona is that over time, you start to believe it is who you are. You become a character on the stage of your own life, playing the part so well that even you forget it's just a performance. But then, in rare moments, you suddenly realize you don't know who you are when the curtain falls. Maybe you felt this before, sitting alone after a long day, completely drained. Not from the work itself, but from having to play the part for too long. Smiling at the right times, nodding on cue, pretending you're fine while chaos brews inside. And in that quiet exhaustion, you know deep down you've drifted far from yourself. What's terrifying is that this drifting doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, day after day. Every time you say I'm fine when you're not. Every time you choose silence over your truth. Every time you choose what the world wants instead of what your soul longs for. One decision at a time, you move away from yourself. Until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. And then people give this feeling names: midlife crisis, burnout, depression. But really, it's just the result of one simple thing. You've lived too long in a life that doesn't belong to you. You've played the part so well that you forgot it was just a part. The truth is, you're not lost. You're buried. Beneath that persona, you're still there, wild, raw, full of longing. But you pushed that version of you into the basement, locked the door, and only showed the world a version that was easier to accept. And that's when the shadow appears. The shadow isn't just made of anger and envy. It's everything you had to deny in order to be loved, everything you suppressed just to be accepted. It might be the wild creativity you were told was ridiculous. It might be the need to cry, to break, to be soft, but you were taught to be strong. It might be the dreams you abandoned, the truths you were too afraid to speak. The shadow is the home of the parts of you that you never allowed to live. And the more you reject it, the more it shows up quietly, persistently. It becomes the numbness, the disconnection, the emptiness you can't explain. It doesn't go away. It waits for you to be brave enough to face it. There's a bitter truth many people never do, because facing the shadow means confronting the parts of you that you once labeled as wrong, shameful, or unacceptable. But within that shadow is also your power, your creativity, your truth. That's the paradox. If you want to find meaning, you have to go to the place you once swore you'd never enter. You might ask, when will I finally stop performing and start living? The answer usually comes in a moment of crisis, when everything you've built starts to fall apart, or when you finally get everything you ever wanted and still feel empty. That's when the mask cracks. And if you're brave enough, instead of patching it back together, you'll let it fall. That's when the question echoes louder than ever. Do I want to keep being a good person, or do I want to be a whole person? Because those two are not the same. Being a good person means continuing the performance. Being whole means embracing the parts of you that you once hid, the shadow and the light, the beauty and the flaws. If you choose wholeness, the path won't be easy. It's like stepping into an old, dusty basement, where everything you've hidden lives. Behind each door is a painful memory, a fear you don't want to touch. But behind each door is also a piece of meaning you've lost. And the deeper you go, the more you realize you don't need to become someone else. You just need to return to yourself. It's hard to describe the feeling in words, but if you've ever, even once, spoken a truth you've hidden for years, you'll understand. The freedom doesn't come from others understanding you. It comes from you finally acknowledging yourself. That's the moment your soul gets back a piece of what was lost. And that's just the beginning. Because the journey to meaning isn't about climbing higher. It's about going deeper. Not about gaining more, but shedding what doesn't belong. Not about trying to be better, but about having the courage to be more real. And that's when you'll understand. Meaning is not found in how much you've hidden. It's found in your willingness to bring those hidden parts into the light, so you no longer live divided from yourself. Meaning is not about how much you've hidden. It's about whether you're brave enough to bring those parts into the light, so you no longer have to live divided from yourself. Because only when you return to the pieces you left behind will you begin to see that what you once thought were wounds were actually your compass. People often believe that meaning is found in grand achievements or shining moments. But the truth is, it doesn't live at the mountaintop. It lives in your scars. It's carved into the memories you tried to forget, in the emotions you once labeled shameful. The very parts you tried to reject are the ones leading you back to who you really are. Imagine sitting in an old room. A dim light filters through a dusty window, landing on objects long forgotten. You open a worn-out box, and inside are yellowed photographs, old keepsakes that stir pain. You want to close it, but a voice within whispers, "Look closer. This is part of you too." And when you do look, something strange happens. Those memories, even the painful ones, feel familiar. Like running into an old friend you didn't know you missed. You realize that even in sorrow, there is a kind of truth, a kind of life that no outer success could ever replace. That's what meaning is. Not escaping the pain, but making it part of the path. When you lose something, but understand that loss gave birth to something new. When you fall, but realize the fall woke you up. When you carry a wound, and instead of hiding it, you let it be the mark that says, "I was here. I loved. I lost. I learned." There's a paradox few dare to face. You don't find meaning in pure light. You only find it when you touch the dark. Meaning doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from walking through it and emerging on the other side, fuller and deeper than before. Maybe you've thought, if I didn't have these scars, I'd be happier. But imagine a life with no cracks, no failures, no broken dreams. Would you really know what it means to be alive? It's the trembling in the dark, the rejections, the breaking points that give you the power to understand others, to feel deeply, to connect. Jung believed that to find meaning, you don't ask, "What is the purpose of my life?" You ask, "What part of me had to be exiled so I could keep surviving?" Because meaning isn't something you discover out there. It's something you reclaim, piece by piece, from within. In this way, pain becomes a map. Are you feeling lonely? Ask yourself, what part of me have I disconnected from? Are you feeling angry? Ask, what truth is hiding underneath this rage? Are you feeling empty? Maybe that emptiness is a voice calling from a forgotten corner of your soul. This isn't easy. We were all taught to avoid pain, to hide our wounds, to prove we're strong. But when you dare to sit with what makes you shake, that's when you finally start to see who you really are. Think back to a time in your life when you were in so much pain you thought you wouldn't make it through. Maybe someone left. Maybe a dream fell apart. Maybe the world seemed to turn against you. Remember not just the pain, but what changed in you afterward. You were no longer the same. You lost something, yes. But you also found a part of yourself that had never existed before. That is meaning. So darkness is not a prison. It's a hallway to the treasure. The treasure is your true self, buried beneath fear, shame, and the rules society placed upon you. The hardest part isn't facing the dark. It's accepting that you will never again be who you once were. Because when you reclaim the parts of you that were left behind, you don't just become a better version of yourself. You become someone new, someone whole. And in that moment, meaning stops being an idea. It becomes a presence, a stillness beneath the chaos, a quiet knowing that even in your pain, you are walking your path. Some say, "I just want to be happy." But happiness comes and goes. Some say, "I want peace." But peace is fragile if it has no roots. But when someone says, "I want meaning," what they truly mean is, I want every part of me, even the shadows, even the wounds, even the broken dreams, to have a place in this life. And that is the real revolution. Because when you touch that truth, you start to realize something even scarier. The life you're living, the roles you've been playing, may have never truly belonged to you at all. The life you're living, the roles you're playing, may have never truly been yours. From a very young age, we learned that in order to survive, we had to become someone else. A child who cries too loudly is told to be quiet. A sensitive child is scolded for being weak. A curious child is dismissed with, "Stop asking so many questions." And just like that, little by little, the real parts of us are left behind, replaced with versions that are more acceptable to the grown-up world. You grow up hearing the same messages over and over. Be good, be smart, be strong, be impressive. Don't be too loud, don't be too shy, don't cause trouble, don't fail. All these shoulds and shouldn'ts start forming a shell around you. You learn to smile when you're expected to. Stay silent when it's easier. Nod when it's polite. You learn to live as a constant performance, where the audience is the world around you. What you call your personality is often not your true self, but your persona, the social mask you were taught to wear. That mask isn't inherently bad. It helped you survive. It helped you fit in. It gave you a place in the world. But over time, you forget that it's just a mask. You begin to believe it's your real face. And so, you spend your whole life protecting something that was never truly you. Ask yourself this. Have you ever smiled while your heart was breaking, just to avoid looking weak? Have you ever agreed with something you didn't believe in, just to avoid conflict? Have you ever chased a dream that wasn't yours, simply because it was what others expected? Every time you do, you take another step away from your true self. And one day, you realize you no longer know who you are beyond the roles you've been playing. The tragedy is this: the longer you wear the mask, the more you believe it's your real face. The more you act the part, the easier it is to forget the presence of the soul beneath. Until, one day, in a rare moment of stillness, a quiet voice whispers, "Is this really your life?" There are mornings when you wake up feeling exhausted, not because your work is too hard, but because you spent the entire previous day pretending so well. You faked being okay, faked being strong, faked having energy. And the true cost of pretending isn't fooling others, it's abandoning yourself. Jung once warned us, the social mask is necessary for survival, but it becomes dangerous when it becomes your whole life. Because then, you can no longer tell what is real and what is not. You no longer know what your soul truly wants, because every decision you make is shaped by fear, expectation, and someone else's script. You've probably heard someone say they feel lost, but the truth is, they're not lost. They're buried beneath layers of expectation, beneath roles they've played for too long. They haven't lost themselves, they've just lost sight of themselves. And then, when you finally begin to dig for your truth, the terrifying thing happens. You realize you don't know who you are without the roles. You don't know what you want when there's no one left to please. You don't even know how you truly feel, because for so long you've been living on borrowed emotions. This is when the shadow becomes clearest. The shadow isn't just darkness, it's what was left behind. It's the cry you weren't allowed to release, the anger you were told to swallow, the dream you gave up on because it was too unrealistic, the truths you hid because you were afraid of losing love or acceptance. And like a law of nature, what you reject will return stronger. The shadow seeps into your life as depression, emptiness, or a sense of disconnection. You might succeed, but no longer feel joy. You might be in love, but not feel truly close. You might stay busy, but deep down, you're just acting. Then comes a moment, sooner or later, when your soul can't take it anymore. It will force you to face yourself. Maybe through a personal crisis, losing your job, a breakup, illness, or maybe through a sudden numbness, nothing feels meaningful anymore. That's when the mask begins to crack, and you must choose, patch it back together, or let it fall and face your real self underneath. That choice is never easy. To drop the mask, you must be willing to lose what you thought was everything. You might lose relationships built around the false self. You might let go of goals that were never yours. You might have to leave behind the safety that your role once gave you. But within that loss, you gain something infinitely more precious, your real self. There's a moment when a voice inside you finally says, "I don't want to be a good person anymore. I want to be a whole person." And in that moment, you feel a deep release, because being good was just a performance. Being whole is where you and your shadow meet. It's where you no longer have to split yourself just to survive. Choosing wholeness is when the real journey begins. A journey not upward, but downward. Not outward, but inward. Not about gaining more, but shedding what's false. And each time you reclaim a piece of what was left behind, you don't just understand meaning, you feel it, like a breath coming back to life. And when you begin walking that path, you discover something unexpected. Meaning isn't found in pure light. It's found in integration in the space, where your shadow has a place beside your light, where even your wounds are allowed to be part of your life. Meaning is not pure light. It is integration, the place where darkness stands beside light, where even your wounds become part of your life. People often think that to find peace, they must eliminate the ugly parts, hide the wounds, and suppress so-called negative emotions. But the truth is, meaning doesn't come from rejection. It comes from bringing everything home. Imagine your soul as a great house. In that house are bright rooms where you welcome others, where you show kindness, success, and stability. But there are other rooms locked, dusty, where you've hidden the parts of yourself you never wanted anyone to see. The child still crying from old wounds, the rage you've held down for years, the shame you've never dared to speak aloud. Each of these rooms holds a forgotten piece of your soul, and the more you keep them shut, the colder your house becomes. Integration is the act of opening those doors, not to push away what you find, but to embrace it. Because these parts are not enemies, they are parts of you, and they have waited so long to be acknowledged. The first door will be the hardest. Memories and feelings you've tried to bury will come flooding back. You'll see the face of someone you loved and lost. You'll hear the words that once made you shrink. You'll feel the loneliness that once crushed your chest. But if you can stay with it, if you can sit in that room and listen, you'll discover something profound. Those parts only ever wanted to be seen, to be accepted, to come home. When you do that, you stop the war within. It's no longer light versus dark, no longer the good self silencing the bad. It becomes a symphony where every part of you, even the out-of-tune ones, finds its place. And in that moment, you feel a deep silence beneath the noise, a stillness, not because the pain is gone, but because it finally has a place in your story. This is the journey of the wounded healer, the one who steps into pain not to drown in it, but to return with it, transform, like a warrior coming back from battle not untouched, but with scars that testify to their strength. Think back to a moment in your life when, after everything fell apart, you somehow became deeper, wiser. You weren't the same person anymore. Maybe you lost your innocence but gained vision. Maybe you were broken but gained empathy. That is the power of the wounded healer. None of us are perfect, but it is our wounds that make us real. In today's world, people love to talk about becoming the best version of yourself. It sounds good, but it adds pressure to be better, stronger, more. But meaning doesn't come from becoming the best version. It comes from becoming the whole version. And to be whole, you can't leave your shadows behind. You must bring them back. Embrace them. Let them become part of your strength. There's a beautiful image, the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden. They're honored, made into the most beautiful part of the piece. Humans are the same. Your cracks don't lessen your value. Your cracks are where the light gets in. But remember, this process is not easy. When you enter the darkness to reclaim what's been left behind, you'll meet resistance. The shadow is not just sadness or rage. It's the beliefs you built to protect yourself. It will whisper, "Don't do this. You'll get hurt again." It will tempt you to go back to the mask. Even the world around you will try to keep you in your old role because that's what they're used to. But if you are patient, if you are brave enough to keep going, you will feel the lost pieces returning. One day, you'll realize you can cry without shame. One day, you'll say no without guilt. One day, you'll look into the mirror and see your eyes come back to life. That is the sign that you are becoming whole. And when you are whole, meaning is no longer something you search for. It becomes presence. It lives in the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you see the world. It doesn't need to be proven by success or recognition. It simply exists in every moment because you are no longer split from your own soul. Yes, you may lose things on this journey. You may lose people who only loved the mask. You may lose goals that were never yours to begin with. You may lose the comfort that comes from pretending. But what you gain is far greater: truth. And in truth, meaning grows. But if you don't take this journey, if you keep avoiding it, The cost won't just be personal emptiness. It will be a quiet erosion, one that spreads into your relationships, your community, and the world you help create. Because when you deny your own truth, you lose more than yourself. You lose your power to bring healing to others. And in a world aching for depth, honesty, and wholeness, that is a loss none of us can afford. If you don't dare to walk that path, if you keep avoiding it, the price you pay won't just be personal emptiness. It will be a quiet erosion that spreads into your relationships, into the society you live in. People don't die the moment they lose something. They die slowly the moment they stop feeling. There's a kind of death Jung called psychic death, the death of the spirit. It's not like physical death, where life ends in a moment. It's a slow fading, where the soul slips away piece by piece while the body keeps going. You still go to work. You still reply to messages. You still smile in photos. But inside, you've been gone for a long time. The terrifying part is, the modern world sees this as normal. Society praises those who burn out from endless work. We call fake smile strength. We applaud success without ever asking who that success really belongs to. And day by day, a culture of smiling zombies is born. We wear happy masks, chase hollow goals, and call it life. The damage doesn't just live in the soul. It shows up in the body. When there is no meaning, the body begins to scream. Anxiety stops being a response to danger. It becomes a permanent state. You're constantly tense, not because you're running from an enemy, but because you're running from yourself. Your heart races. Your body feels tired, not from survival, but from self-abandonment. When meaning disappears, emotions fade too. You stop crying not because you've healed, but because you've disconnected. You stop feeling joy, not because life is peaceful, but because you no longer know what joy truly is. You watch your life like a blurry film, unable to remember the script. And to fill the void, you turn to temporary relief: shopping, eating, sex, stimulants, social media. Anything to feel alive, even if just for a moment. But it's like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Without meaning, relationships go hollow. People stop seeing each other. They only see mirrors reflecting back their unmet needs. Love becomes performance. Friends become actors pretending to be okay. Family becomes a cycle, repeating old wounds that were never healed. And the most dangerous thing is that, without meaning, you stop asking questions. You no longer wonder, who am I? What do I want? What am I living for? And without questions, you lose your dreams, your desires, your courage to change. You start settling. Life is just the way it is, you say. It's not that bad. I should be grateful. And day by day, you call your numbness maturity, your surrender peace, and the silence of your soul responsibility. But that's not maturity. That's spiritual collapse in disguise. Jung once said, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." The deepest wounds aren't poverty or illness, they're unlived lives. Parents who never dared to be themselves unconsciously pass that fear to their children. And so generation after generation inherits the same emptiness. Look around. A society empty on the inside creates chaos on the outside. When people can't find meaning, they reach for substitutes: power, money, status, control, addiction. They throw their inner void onto the world, creating violence, corruption, and never-ending conflict. A surface-level world chasing surface-level success, rotting from the inside out. That is the price of rejecting your darkness. Because if you can't find meaning within, you'll keep chasing illusions without. And the more you chase, the farther you drift from your soul. But there is a way out. Meaning is not a prize you win once you've done enough. It's not somewhere far off in the future. It's here, right beneath the mask, right inside the wounds you've tried to hide. It's waiting for you to ask one brave question. What truth in me have I been avoiding? You don't need more goals. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to prove your worth. You only need to turn inward, to sit in stillness, to stop running, to stop filling, and to finally listen to the voice you've ignored for too long. That is the first step on the journey home. And when you start facing the darkness, something strange happens. You don't become someone new. You become yourself for the first time in years. Every broken piece you gather, every wound you acknowledge, becomes a thread that stitches your soul back together. And when your soul is whole again, you'll feel meaning in every breath. Yes, you might lose things along the way. You might lose people who only loved your mask. You might let go of goals that never belong to you. You might give up the comfort of pretending, but what you gain is life, real life. A life no longer performed, but fully present. And when you emerge from the dark, scarred but whole, you won't just find yourself, you'll become a light for others. You'll understand their pain, because you've been there too. You won't offer empty advice. You'll offer truth. And that truth is what heals. You don't need to wait any longer. You're not too late. You're not behind. You're not broken. You've simply been distracted from your center. Meaning has never left. It's still there, guarded by the darkness, written in the wounds, waiting for your return. So pause, breathe, and let one question rise within you. What part of me have I abandoned just to survive? And when you're ready to listen to the answer, you'll see the path home. Not a new path, but your path, the one that's been waiting for you all along. Because in the end, meaning is not something you seek. It is who you become when you choose to live fully with nothing hidden, nothing denied, nothing left behind. And if you're truly ready, whisper it softly to yourself. I'm ready to live my real life. Because the moment you choose to return, the journey toward meaning has already begun. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.